Hello students, welcome to today's class. My name is Rashmi and I am your botany educator. In today's class, what are we going to discuss, students? We are going to cover up all the important points of the most important chapter seen in plant physiology, which is transport in plants. Why is this a very important topic, students? Because you're going to get most of the questions from this particular chapter in your competitive exams, be it NEET, be it CET. You are sure to get a question from this particular chapter, right? So without any further delay, let's go into the chapter. Are you all excited? Yes, I am excited too. So let's go into the chapter and see what this chapter is all about. First, let us understand what are the components that are being transported in plant, students. So when I say transport, what is transport? Transport is movement. Transport is locomotion. So what is moving in a plant? They need nutrition, they need nourishment. The roots are going to absorb nourishment, that is your water and minerals from the soil. The leaf is going to be the most important source of food to the entire plant. So you have huge banyan trees, you have small shrubs and herbs. So all of them need food for their growth and development, right? So what are the components that's going to be transported from the leaf to the root or from the root to the leaf and all parts of the plant is your water, your minerals and food. Right? So look at the big tree here, students. You can see the food is made by the leaf and the leaf is going to send food to all the parts of the plant. And here the roots and the root hairs, they absorb water and mineral salts from the soil. They are going to transport it to all the parts of this big tree or the plant, right? So what is this chapter going to talk about, students? How this food is being transported from the leaf to all parts of the plant, how the water and minerals are being transported from the root to all parts of the plant. So we will be discussing all the mechanisms that is seen in this transport, right? Yes. So when you talk about transport in plant, students, we can put them into two categories, one as short distance transport and the other as long distance transport. Short distance transport, what is short distance transport? I stand here and my friend is just next to me. I share this pen with my friend who is just next to me. That's the short distance. If I have to share the same pen to a friend who is staying in the next road, what do? I will have to go out of my house, I will have to go to the main road, then take a turn and then reach his house. Then I will hand over this pen to him, right? So there are two different ways by which I give the pen to my friend. If my friend is just next to me, it's a very simple transport. If my friend is there in her house, then it's going to be a long distance transport, right? So similarly, when we see short distance transport in a plant, you have two different ways. One is diffusion and the other one is cytoplasmic streaming. And when we say long distance transport, we will call the word as translocation, right? What is translocation, students? Translocation. Location means a different place, right? And this translocation is going to happen with the help of vascular tissues. What are the vascular tissues in plant? The xylem and phloem. Okay, so when the movement is going to happen with the help of xylem and phloem, which are vascular tissues, then we will use the word as translocation. We will take up diffusion in the coming slides, but what is cytoplasmic streaming, students? Cytoplasmic streaming, let's understand this process. Imagine this to be a cell, okay? Considering this as a cell, the components inside this cell are your cytoplasm, right? So all the water content along with the hormones, mineral salts, dissolved nutrition, we will call it as cytoplasm. Let us imagine I have a molecule here, A. Okay, the name of this molecule is A, and A wants to move from this end to this end. Okay, so A has moved from this end to this end. Now A has come here, but the movement is happening within the same cell, inside the same cytoplasm, right? Movement of molecule A has happened within the same cell and in the same cytoplasm, and this is called as cytoplasmic streaming. Understood? What is cytoplasmic streaming? The movement of molecules or components within the same cell or cytoplasm is called cytoplasmic streaming. And if movement of food or water is happening through vascular tissues, which are your xylem and phloem, then we will call or use the term translocation. Right. Now let's move into the means of transport. We spoke about diffusion, right? So diffusion is also a short distance transport, but it is going to be a means of transport under your passive transport. Okay, so when you talk about means of transport, we can have two means of transport. One is passive transport and the other is active transport. In passive transport, we have diffusion and facilitated diffusion, which you need to understand in detail, students. Very, very important for your examination point of view. Okay. And what is active transport? Active means what? Active means you have a lot of energy. You have so much of energy to do a lot of work. That is active. That means, what is the word that I used here? I used energy. And what is energy? Energy is ATP, right? Energy is ATP. So in your active process, we are going to make use of energy in the form of ATP. In passive process, there is no utilization of ATP. There is no energy, but movement is happening. Okay. So now we will take up diffusion. We will take up facilitated diffusion and then see what is active transport. The first concept is diffusion. What is diffusion, students? Diffusion means it is the movement of molecules. You can say it is a movement of ions, it is a movement of molecules, it is a movement of solutes here. What is a solute? Take a solution, okay? A solution is going to have a solute and a solvent. Okay, solvent is usually water. Why? Because most of the components dissolve in water. That is why we call water as a universal solvent. But solute will be your component which you are adding to the water. It can be sugar, it can be salt, it can be any molecule that you are adding to the water. When we talk about diffusion, we are talking with reference to the solute molecule, students. That's very, very important, because later we will be talking about osmosis, and you should never get confused between diffusion and osmosis, right? When we talk about osmosis, we will take it up in the term of a solvent. But here, when we are talking about solute, it is diffusion. So what you can say, diffusion is a movement of molecules or ions or solute from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration, right? Look at this image, students. Here you have two cells. Let's consider this to be cell A and this to be cell B, right? Cell A has got more number of solute molecules. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But cell B has got just 4 molecules. So what happens? Molecules move from higher concentration to lower concentration. Simple. This is what is diffusion. Okay. Movement of molecules. Which molecules? Solute molecules. From higher concentration to lower concentration is diffusion. Atoms, ions or molecules, higher concentration to lower concentration. These are the terms that you should keep in mind. Right. Next we talk about facilitated diffusion. What is facilitated diffusion, students? Facilitating means what? Somebody is helping. Facilitating means helping. Here, who is helping? What is getting helped? Diffusion is getting helped. What is diffusion? Movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration. That is diffusion, right? But somebody is going to help these molecules move. Who is that? It is the proteins, right? So here diffusion is brought about with the help of proteins, and these proteins are called as porins and aquaporins. Aqua means water, right? What is aqua? Aqua means water, right? So aquaporins are going to help in the transport of water channels, while porins just help in the movement of molecules. Where are these porins present? Porins are present on the membrane. These are porins. Okay, so you can see porins here, the green colored ones, which is present on the outer membrane. So the structure you see here is mitochondria. The outer membrane of mitochondria is having porins, and these porins help in the movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration. These are aquaporin, students. So the green color image that you see here is an image of aquaporins. So aquaporins, here you see higher molecule is there, lower molecule is there. Movement is happening from higher to lower concentration. This is a water channel. So aquaporin is going to be present. What did you understand? Facilitated diffusion is the one which is happening with the help of proteins. Proteins can be porins or aquaporins, and these proteins are going to help in the movement of molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Simple, right? Diffusion, facilitated diffusion, almost the same, except that in diffusion we do not have the involvement of proteins. In facilitated diffusion we have the involvement of proteins. This facilitated diffusion is of three types, students. What are the three types? The first one is symport. Sim means together. Okay, symport means, let's say you have two molecules. Always in symport we have two molecules being transported. A and B are the two molecules. They have to go from higher concentration to lower concentration, and this is being facilitated by a protein. But both the molecules are going to be crossing the membrane in the same direction. So A is here, B is also here. Both of them go together, right? Together in the same direction, that is symport. The next one is antiport. Anti means opposite or against, right? So here also I have two molecules A and B, but the two molecules are moving in opposite direction. So one says I come this side, the other one says I go the other side, right? So A comes from this end to this end, B goes in the opposite direction, that is antiport. Diffusion is happening from higher to lower concentration with the help of proteins. The last one is uniport. Uni means single. So I have only one molecule which is going to be transported. It is going to come from higher to lower concentration in any direction. Either the molecule can come from this end to this end, or it can go back in this direction. But I have only one molecule in uniport, right? Understood the concept of diffusion and facilitated diffusion? Three types of facilitated diffusion: symport, antiport and uniport. Symport, two molecules cross the membrane, same direction. Antiport, two molecules cross the membrane, opposite direction. Uniport, one molecule crossing the membrane in any direction, right? Yes. The next one is active transport. What is active transport, students? What did we say is active transport? Active means we're using energy. What is the energy? Energy is ATP, right? Why do we need energy? We will see what is active transport. Active transport says it is the movement of molecules from lower concentration to higher concentration. Now did you understand why we need ATP? movement of molecules from lower concentration to higher concentration. Look at the picture here, students. We have just 3 molecules here, and these molecules are going to go from lower concentration to higher concentration. This is your plasma membrane. Higher concentration is here, lower concentration is here. Molecules move from lower to higher concentration with the help of ATP. I will give you a very simple example, students, to understand passive and active transport. All this while we spoke about diffusion and facilitated diffusion. It is like you have a ball, you just throw it onto the ground. What happens? It is so simple. Anyway, gravitational force is going to act in the direction in which the ball is going to go, right? So it is very easy for you to drop a ball, right? Gravitational force is pulling it. But imagine you have to throw the same ball above. You are pushing it against the gravitational force. So what happens? You expel energy. You are using your energy to throw the ball upwards against the gravitational force, right? Earlier it was very simple to drop because gravitational force is anyway acting towards the direction in which the ball falls. But now, since you are acting against the gravitational force, you are using your energy. Same concept here. As such, molecules are very less, and these lower molecules try to go to a region where concentration is higher. What do they need to do? They need to use energy. They need energy to push the molecules from lower concentration to higher concentration, right? That is why they require ATP, because they are acting against the concentration gradient. Earlier, they acted towards the concentration gradient. Now, they are acting against the concentration gradients. This is what is active transport, students. Did we get what is passive transport and active transport? Passive transport is higher concentration to lower concentration. 2 mechanisms, diffusion and facilitated diffusion. Active transport is lower concentration to higher concentration against the concentration gradient. So we require ATP. The next concept that we are going to talk about in this chapter is water potential. What is water potential, students? Water potential is the ability of water molecules to move around freely, right? What is water potential? The ability of water molecules to move around freely is called as water potential. And who is going to have maximum water potential? When can water move around freely? Imagine you have a glass of plain water. It is just water molecules, right? Let's draw a glass here, and in this glass I am just having plain water, just water and nothing else. So what is this going to have? Only water molecules. Is there anybody to disturb these water molecules? No. So what they do? They keep moving around happily. It is like your parents are not at home, you are free to do anything. You are all alone. You can play, you can chat, you can watch a movie, right? Nobody to control you. So water molecules are also free. They don't have anybody to come and bind on to these molecules. Who is having maximum water potential? Pure water is going to have maximum water potential. Why? Because they don't have any other molecule. It is just a solvent. Water is a universal solvent. So what do I have in this glass? Just solvent, right? Solvent is water here. It is free to move anywhere. Okay. Imagine I add a spoon of sugar to it. What is going to happen? These sugar molecules, let's put triangles for sugar. So all the sugar molecules get inside and they come and bind on to this water. Now your parents have come back home. They start telling you, go and study, go and do your homework, right? Solve questions. It's a pressure that they are putting on you. Here, who is putting the pressure? Sugar molecules are putting a pressure on water, right? So they are telling, I will come and bind with you. That's how you get a sugar solution. You mix sugar with water, what do you get? A sugar solution. what has happened? The number of water molecules become less and they are not free to move around. So when I say the water potential of pure water is maximum, the maximum is regarded as 0. Okay, so maximum is regarded as 0. So when I say water potential of a solution is less than 0, it is negative, right? Why? Because maximum itself is 0. When I say water potential of the solution is less, what is less than 0? Minus. Minus is less than 0. So definitely water potential of a solution is negative. This is a neat question, students, right? What will you underline? Water potential of pure water is 0. Water potential of a solution is regarded negative, right? What is water potential represented by? We have a symbol called psi. Psi is representation of this water potential. You just write it as psi, or you can write it as psi W. W for water potential. Understood? What is water potential? Ability of water molecules to move around freely. That is what is water potential. Water is happy by itself, right? Alone, nobody to control, it is running around very happily. Now we will see who is going to affect the water potential. What are the factors which is going to control water potential? The first one is solute potential. So you write psi and S for solute potential. In the earlier diagram, what did we draw? A beaker with just water molecules, and then a sugar molecule comes and enters, right? So sugar here is your solute. What did the sugar do? Sugar came and it started binding on to the water molecules, right? So sugar has affected the ability of water molecules to move freely. So the first factor is solute potential. If the solute concentration is high, water potential decreases. Imagine I add 5 or 6 spoons of sugar into that water. What will happen? Water gets saturated. There will be no more water molecules to go bind on to that sugar. So automatically water potential decreases, right? That is what it reaches the negative value. Here it is just the pure water which is going to have maximum water potential, that is 0, and on the other side you have solute molecules. So solute comes and it is getting combined with the water and water potential is going to decrease. Water potential decreases. What has this solute done? The solute has added pressure onto the water molecule, right? What is the example I gave you? Your parents came inside and then they started applying a pressure. Study, solve the questions, look into videos, right? That's a pressure they are applying on you. Similarly, here, who has applied the pressure? Sugar molecules have applied a pressure on water. So when I say water potential, can I say water potential is equal to solute potential and pressure potential? Why? Because solute molecules control the value of water potential and the pressure potential, the pressure they give. Your parents might just say, watch videos and study. But your friends' parents might say, watch videos, solve questions and do something else. So the pressure that your friend gets is more when compared to pressure that you get, right? So that pressure value also matters. That is why we say water potential is equal to solute potential plus pressure potential. If pressure potential increases, water potential increase, right? Very simple concept, students. This is all about water potential. What is water potential? Ability of water molecules to move freely. Pure water has got maximum water potential. Who is going to affect the water potential? Solute molecules and the pressure they apply. So solute potential plus pressure potential will give you water potential, and the water potential of a solution is always less than 0, which is negative. Right? Yes. The next concept we are going to discuss is osmosis. One of the most important questions for examination point, students. Right? Very simple. Osmosis is also a kind of diffusion. What is diffusion? Movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration. But here it is your solvent molecules. Didn't we tell this earlier? Osmosis is with respect to solvent molecules. That means who is moving? Water molecules are moving from higher concentration to lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. What is the semi-permeable membrane here? Your plasma membrane is a semi-permeable membrane. So, all cells have plasma membrane. Definitely, water molecules can cross the plasma membrane easily, right? So, what is osmosis? Movement of solvent molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane is osmosis. Without this semi-permeable membrane, your answer is wrong. Why? Because it is equal to diffusion. Although you don't mention solute molecules, if you just say ions and molecules, then who will understand whether it is osmosis or diffusion, right? So, you should always mention this word semi-permeable membrane. Without semi-permeable membrane, your answer is wrong. Water molecules here you see. Water molecules are higher here. This is higher concentration and this is lower concentration. Molecules keep moving from higher to lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. This is your semi-permeable membrane. Okay, semi-permeable membrane. And how long the movement is going to happen? Until equilibrium is reached. What is equilibrium? Both sides have same number of water molecules. Cell A has 50, cell B also has 50 water molecules. Until and unless the balance is reached, this movement is going to happen. And who is going to move? Water molecules move. That is your solvent molecules move from higher concentration to lower concentration. This is a very simple definition we have given for osmosis in terms of concentration, students. Higher concentration to lower concentration. The same definition we will put it using different words. What is a different word here? The movement of solvent molecules from a hypotonic solution to a hypertonic solution through a semi-permeable membrane is called osmosis. The previous one spoke in terms of concentration, but this definition is speaking in terms of tonicity, students. Again, a very important question. Students always get confused between hypotonic and hypertonic solution. Again, as I told you, semi-permeable membrane is very important, without which your answer is wrong. Now, let us understand what is this hypotonic and hypertonic solution. First, let me take up the hypertonic solution. What do you think is hypertonic solution, students? Tell me, what is hypertonic? All of you would have thought hypertonic solution is the one which has higher concentration. You are right. But which concentration is high here? It is the concentration of the solute molecules. Okay. So, when I say hypertonic solution, what is high? High concentration of solute, which means your sugar molecules or salt molecules are high. What is less? Water concentration is less. So, solute concentration is high and water concentration is less. That is a hypertonic solution. What is a hypotonic solution? Hypotonic. Hypo means less. What is less here? This hypo refers to solute concentration. That means it is your sugar or salt molecules that is less. So, solute concentration is less. Water concentration is more. And what is osmosis? Movement of water molecules, not solute molecules, solvent molecules. Water is going to move from higher concentration to lower concentration. Where is the concentration high, students? Yes, it is going to be high in hypotonic solution. So, where is the movement of water happening? It It is going to happen from hypotonic to hypertonic solution. Got it? What is your definition saying? Hypotonic solution to hypertonic solution through a semi-permeable membrane. Understood, students? Yes, very simple. Hypotonic, hypertonic. Never get confused. All right? Yes. The next topic which we are going to discuss with respect to osmosis is osmotic pressure. What is osmotic pressure, students? What do you think is osmotic pressure? What is pressure? Somebody is enforcing you to do something. That's a pressure to you, right? But here we are talking about the pressure osmosis is going to face. What is osmosis? Movement of water molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane is osmosis. Now what are we doing? We are giving a pressure so that osmosis will not occur. That is osmotic pressure. Simple, isn't it? Let us look at this diagram. This was water and water molecules, because of osmosis, through this semi-permeable membrane, they enter. Okay, this is solution. Solution is going to have less number of water molecules. Pure water has more number of water molecules. Water enters into the solution through the semi-permeable membrane. The blue color you see is the semi-permeable membrane. What happens as a result? You are going to get this image 1 and 2. Water has moved. So you can see a decrease here. In this image, the point of water is slightly higher. Second image, because of movement of water molecules, there is a decrease in pure water. The third image, as you can see, is similar, or you can say it is the same as first image. How did this happen? I have applied a force here. Okay, so I have given a pressure at this end of the tube. So what has this pressure done? This pressure that I gave here did not allow water molecules to move from higher concentration to lower concentration. As a result, what has happened? The pressure has inhibited the process of osmosis. That is osmotic pressure. What happened? The level of water molecules remains the same. Osmosis did not occur. Right? Now the pressure whatever you have applied is represented by pi. Understood, students? What is osmotic pressure? The pressure which has been applied to inhibit osmosis is called as osmotic pressure. It is represented by pi. Alright. Next we will talk about a very simple concept called as imbibition. What is imbibition? Imbibition in simple terms means adsorption, not absorption. It is the concept of adsorption, right? You can use the word absorption when it is complete. But what actually happens is molecules accumulate on the surface. I have a raisin or a dry grapes or a chickpea. These are all day-to-day examples you see of imbibition. What happens when you place this raisin in water or a chickpea in water? What has happened? Swelling has happened, right? When you soak dry grapes in the night and you wake up in the morning, it is just swelling up. How did this happen? Because of adsorption. What happened? The water molecules start accumulating on the surface of this raisin or chickpea. And then what happens? You have more water molecules. They also come and align like this. So you have first layer, second layer, third layer and so on. The second layer will apply a pressure on the first layer. The first layer get inside. The third layer applies a pressure onto second layer applies a pressure to first layer moves inside. So that is a process of imbibition, students. The very simple example of imbibition seen in question papers is swelling up of raisins, right? That is your dry grapes soaked in water. What does your definition say? Imbibition is a special type of diffusion. Again, diffusion, movement of molecules from higher to lower concentration when water is absorbed by solid colloids, causing them to increase in volume. That is imbibition. Very simple, and this is the most repeated example asked in your NEET papers or CET papers. The next example which you can see in question papers, absorption of water by dry wood. Very simple. During rainy season, what happens, students? Very difficult to open and close your doors, right? How is that possible during rainy seasons? You are not able to open and close the door because wood swells when water gets adsorbed on the surface of wood. Wood also swells because of imbibition. That is why it becomes a little difficult for you to open and close the door. Simple. What is imbibition? Adsorption of molecules, because of which these molecules increase or swell up, right? Yes. Next, we will talk about long distance transport. All this while we spoke about short distance transport, right? Diffusion, osmosis, active transport, passive transport, along with the concept of osmosis and imbibition. But now we are going to talk about long distance transport. What is long distance transport? From the root to the tip of the plant or tree to such heights. Can osmosis or can diffusion do the process of transfer of these molecules to such big heights? Very difficult. So what happens? We are going to look at a different mechanism by which water, mineral salts and food is being carried from the root to the leaf and from the leaf to the root. The bulk movement of substances through the conducting or vascular tissue of the plants is called translocation. Didn't we talk about this earlier? Yes. What is translocation? The movement of food or water which is happening with the help of xylem and phloem is called translocation. So what is the phenomenon that is used to transport a mass or chunk of molecules is translocation and not simple diffusion or active transport. So the image you see here is of the xylem. So the orange one is depicting your xylem and this end is your phloem. The blue one is phloem. And through the xylem and phloem, we are transporting molecules of food, water and minerals. That is translocation. Now let's understand the transport of water, students. Then we will take up the transport of minerals and finally we will end it with transport of food. When I talk about transport of water can occur either by absorption of water or ascent of sap. Two phenomena by which water molecules are being transported from the root to the tip of the plant or tree. When I talk about absorption of water, it can happen either by apoplast or symplast, and when it is ascent of sap, it can happen either by root pressure or transpiration pull. Very, very important concepts for examination point of view, both your board exams as well as competitive exams. Let us understand these simple concepts, students. So first we will start with symplast. What is symplast? Let's look at the definition first. It consists of living parts of the plant body such as protoplast connected to plasmodesmata. What is the meaning of this? Living parts. Living parts means the cells have nucleus. Alright? And it is the connection between protoplasm. Protoplasm is the cytoplasmic content of the plant and each cell is connected to one another with the help of plasmodesmata. Let's look at the diagram. Here you see this is different cells. Starting off with epidermis, cortex, endodermis, pericycle. Where are these cells present, students? In the root. So we have a root here. Root hairs will be absorbing water and minerals. Outermost layer of the root is your epidermis. Inner to the epidermis is the cortex. The third layer, endodermis. Lastly, pericycle. And from the pericycle, it is going to reach the xylem, which is the end, right? And this xylem is going to transport water to all the parts of the plant. When water enters this epidermis, the connections you see here. So see the connection. Each of these cells are connected to each other. How are they connected? With the help of plasmodesmata. So the name of the connection is called plasmodesmata. The pink color image you see here is your protoplasm. Different cells have got cytoplasmic content, which is protoplasm in plants. And as water enters, and as water is being absorbed from the soil into the root, water just enters into the epidermis, right? So water from the root is going to go into the epidermis. From the epidermis through the plasmodesmata, it goes to the cortex. From the cortex, it goes to endodermis. From endodermis to pericycle, and then reaches the xylem, a very straight route. That is symplast. What are you observing here? Water crosses the membrane of the cell. So plasma membrane is here. This is your cell wall. This is the plasma membrane. Inside the plasma membrane, you have the protoplasm. And using the protoplasm, water is moving. Very, very simple here. But there is less movement of water by this mechanism. Although water is being transported in a direct route, very, very less amount of water is being transported by the mechanism of symplast. Then how is maximum amount of water being transported? We have another mechanism called as apoplast. What are the words that you need to remember for apoplast? It consists of non-living parts of the plant, such as cell wall and intercellular spaces. The earlier one spoke about living parts, but here apoplast is your non-living parts of the plant, which means this part is not involving the nucleus of the cell. How does the water cross then? As water is being absorbed, the diagram is the same, the cells are the same. The difference here is the color. The color is the blue color, which you need to note here, students. So the movement of water is happening only through this outer spaces. That means between the cell wall and the intercellular space. Movement of water does not happen through the protoplasm or plasmodesmata. Just the outer layers, that is your cell wall, intercellular space. Root hair absorbs water and then it enters the epidermis, cortex, endodermis. It comes to endodermis through these spaces. But when it reaches the endodermis, can you see this reddish orange colored structure? I will just put an extension of this. So when these strips are present like this, they act as a barrier. Can water cross this? No. Why? Because these are Casparian strips which are seen in the endodermis of the plant, right? What does this Casparian strip do? It does not allow the entry of water molecules. Why? Because it is going to have a waxy layer called as suberin. Can wax mix with water? No, right? So this suberin is also a waxy coating which does not allow water molecules to pass through it. So what does a water molecule do? It comes inside. Again, this side also, water molecules enter the cortex, come to the endodermis. They cannot cross the endodermis, so they come inside. As soon as they come inside, the mechanism becomes symplast, right? And from the endodermis, using symplast, they reach pericycle and finally go to the xylem. Until cortex, that is epidermis and cortex, it is apoplast. Endodermis, pericycle becomes symplast because the endodermis has got suberin, which does not permit the entry of water. However, the target is xylem. Finally, they reach xylem. What are the two mechanisms we saw? The first one is symplast, second one is apoplast. And by this mechanism, maximum movement of water is seen. The next we will talk about ascent of sap. Do you remember that flow chart which we saw, students? Didn't we see ascent of sap? What is ascent of sap? The root pressure. The root pressure concept is the principle of ascent of sap. What is the meaning of root pressure? Here pressure is given to the roots. Let me show you here. So we have a root, water enters into the root. I have molecules of water in the soil, and from the soil they go inside the root. As they go inside, what is happening? More and more water molecules try to get in. So they keep putting a pressure on the water molecules, and these water molecules are being pushed on top. Did you understand? The pressure which water molecules give to the root. So what happens? The molecules of water which are inside will try to go on top so that more number of water molecules enter. This is what is a principle of root pressure or ascent of sap, right? So root pressure theory was put forth by a scientist called Priestley in 1916. Because of this root pressure, what is happening? Root hairs, they absorb more and more water, and water is being pushed upwards. Earlier, water was still here, and because of root pressure, they keep on moving. So you see the level of water has increased. That means the amount of pressure that is being applied on these roots is sufficient to push water to a shorter distance, right? It can be responsible for pushing up water to small heights in a plant. And if you consider monocots like grasses, they are as such very short. So this ascent of sap or root pressure itself is sufficient to push water to the complete grass. But do you think this mechanism is applicable for tall trees like a banyan tree or a peepal tree? No, it is not possible. Will this root pressure push it to that height? Definitely not possible. So what is the mechanism that tall trees are going to use? The mechanism is transpiration pull. What is transpiration? Transpiration is a loss of water from the plant. It is like the plants sweating out. When do they sweat? When there is sunlight, when there is lot of heat, they sweat out. And because of the sweat, what happens? The plant feels thirsty and it wants to drink more water. Simple principle, students. Try to correlate to our day-to-day life. You start walking in the hot sun, you start sweating, you become dehydrated, you drink more water. Right? Same concept plants are using. The plants are also sweating during the daytime. So what they will tell the stomata to lose lot of water. And because water is being lost, plants have sweated out water, they become thirsty. So then the plant tells the root, absorb more water now, take up more water. And what happens? The roots absorb more water and the plants suck up the water which is reached to the tip. Now let us understand this. So transpiration pull is the most important phenomenon for upward transport of water. What is transpiration? Transpiration is a loss of water in the form of water vapor from the aerial parts of the plant. What is an aerial part? Any part of the plant which is present above the soil is aerial plant. Usually maximum amount of water loss is going to happen with the help of leaves. So here through the leaf water loss is happening, and that phenomenon is called as transpiration. Then what happens? Plants become tired and they will tell the roots absorb more water. Now roots will absorb and it gives to all the parts. That's a very, very simple concept of transpiration. How does this transpiration pull works? Although the leaves are telling the roots absorb more water, will the roots be able to send up water to that height? Definitely not possible. So what is that mechanism? Let us see. The first one is cohesive force. What is a cohesive force? Cohesive force is attraction between identical molecules. Both the molecules you see here are looking alike. So here it is going to be attraction between water molecules and water molecules. Let us consider this to be a root, and then you have a stem which goes up, and then the big tree, right? So water molecules, they get absorbed and enter inside. So what happens as these molecules go up? The molecules of water which are down will try to pull each other. It is like this molecule tells this molecule, come with me, come with me. And this molecule says this, you come with me. So in turn, what they are doing, they are pulling each other, and then they go up to the entire part of the tree, right? So they are getting attracted to each other, pulling each other to great heights. That is a cohesive force. The next force is adhesive force. What is the adhesive force? Molecules you see are different. So this is a smiley, right? But this is not. So here it is going to be attraction between non-identical molecules, different molecules. This is water and this is lignin. Where is lignin present? In the plant. Okay. So if the plant has to get water till the tip, lignin should also get attracted to water. So as water is going, it is pulling lignin also for support, so that the entire plant gets water. This is a basic principle, students, of transpiration. The first force was cohesive force and adhesive force. The second kind is capillary force. Very simple. What is capillary force? Imagine you have a straw. You dip the straw in a glass of water, and when you take out that straw, what will happen? You will see water content to a small height in the straw, right? And then what happens when you suck? That water comes into your mouth, right? That is the phenomenon of capillarity. Here, as soon as the straw is dipped in water, water molecules raise to a certain extent. And what is the straw here? The straw here in the plant is xylem vessels. Okay, so xylem vessels are extremely thin like a straw. So as soon as xylem vessels are dipped in water, where is the water? The roots that have absorbed water is sending it upwards. As soon as the xylem vessels are dipped in water, automatically water reaches, right? And then because of transpiration, this water moves up. So that transpirational force is the factor responsible for sucking the water. So as transpiration happens, as plants lose water, these are taken upwards. So the two most important phenomena of transpiration is cohesive force and adhesive force, and then the capillary force, right? So when you talk about movement of water is unidirectional. That means it is always in one direction. Water always is transported from the root till the tip of the plant or tree, just in one direction only. This is about transport of water, right? Yes. Next we will talk about mineral absorption. Very simple, students, mineral absorption. What are minerals? The nourishment the plants derive from the soil. So how these minerals are being transported? By two mechanisms. One is passive absorption and active absorption, or you can say passive transport, active transport. and these minerals are usually dissolved in water. So as the root has absorbed water, they are indirectly taking in the minerals also, because minerals enter the xylem through the same route, whatever we saw earlier, symplast, apoplast, same way, because anyway these minerals are dissolved in water. So plants are taking up minerals along with water. And if you are particularly looking at the two mechanisms, passive absorption, active transport, we have already discussed earlier in the chapter. When you talk about passive absorption, it is either by diffusion or facilitated diffusion, no usage of ATP. Active transport, it is against the concentration gradient from lower concentration to higher concentration. So they use ATP. So images you see here, ATP enters in the third diagram, molecules go from lower concentration to higher concentration. So this is depicting your active transport, right students? Yes. And the first image is depicting your diffusion. Molecules go from higher to lower concentration. And here the second image, higher to lower concentration with the help of proteins. These are your proteins, carrier proteins. That is your porins, aquaporins. So here it is your facilitated diffusion, right? Yes. And when you talk about minerals, again it is going to be unidirectional, because anyway it is from the xylem to all the parts of the tree. All right. Now lastly, let's talk about transport of food, students. Transport of food is very, very important. It can be asked as a 5-mark question for your board exam, right? Very important question, right? So transport of food means the food which is made by the leaf with the phenomenon of photosynthesis is being transported to all parts of the plant, including the root which is present below the soil. And when we talk about food transport is happening with the help of phloem from source to sink. What are the words that you have to remember here? Phloem, source to sink. Source is the leaf which is making food, and sink is the part which is storing food. So you can say sink as the storage organ. Who is the vascular tissue? Phloem. And what is happening in the transport of food? It is transported from source to sink. The part of the plant that synthesizes the food is called as source, and the part where the food is used or stored is called as sink, which we have discussed. Now let us look into this diagram, students. Very simple diagram this is. When I talk about the transport of food, we can explain it in the form of a theory called mass flow hypothesis, and this mass flow hypothesis was put forth by a scientist called as Munch. You either call it as Munch's hypothesis or you can call it as mass flow hypothesis, which by itself is a 5-mark question for your board exams. The two important parts of the plant which is involved in the mass flow hypothesis is your sieve tube and companion cell. So this is your sieve tube. Sieve tubes have got sieve plates which are having pores, and this is your companion cell. Okay, a very simple diagram to illustrate mass flow hypothesis. So I have put up 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 images of sieve plate, sieve tube and companion cell. So these are all sieve tubes. This is your companion cells, the one which nucleus, and these are your sieve plates with pores. Now let us understand the hypothesis. Who is making food? The leaf makes food, right? So leaf is the source which is making food in the form of glucose with the help of chlorophyll, sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, that is your photosynthesis. As soon as glucose is made by the leaf, glucose is a sugar molecule, yes, so glucose enters into the companion cells. Concentration of glucose in the companion cells become more, and for the transport of this glucose from the leaf into the companion cell, energy is being used in the form of ATP. So what is the process when ATP is used? It is an active transport, right? Mechanism is active transport. So from the leaf, glucose has entered into the companion cells with the phenomenon of active transport. Companion cells have got higher molecule of glucose. Sieve tube has got lower molecule of glucose. What happens? Sugar molecules are transported. Now when transport is happening, we will not use the word glucose. We will use the word sucrose. Okay? Transport always happens in the form of sucrose. Now, sucrose molecules have entered into the sieve tubes. As the number of sucrose molecules increase, we have xylem here. Xylem is also going to be present in the plant, right? In reality, xylem and phloem are close to each other in the plant, right? What xylem does? Xylem is going to give water. Why? Concentration of water became less here in this sieve tube and companion cells. Water enters, the phenomenon is endosmosis, right? Osmosis is happening. Since it is entering inside, we will call it as endosmosis, right? Active transport has happened, endosmosis has happened, and the sucrose molecules are present here. There is higher concentration of sucrose molecule in this cell. So cell number 1 is going to give these sucrose molecules to the adjacent cell. Sucrose molecules enter to the cell 2. So this is your cell 2. Companion cells have got more sucrose. Sieve tube has more sucrose. The adjacent cells 3, 4 and 5 have got less sucrose molecules. Again, from the xylem, water will go inside, endosmosis happens. These are all happening simultaneously, students. Now, the cell number 2 will distribute sucrose to cells 3, 4 and 5 because region of higher concentration to region of lower concentration, diffusion happens. Cell 3, 4 and 5 will also get sucrose, right? Again, the concept of endosmosis will also happen because xylem gives water. Now, after a point of time, this is going to be a repetitive process happening to all the cells present in the plant. That means the sucrose molecules has been transported in all directions. Can you see here we have arrows in different directions, which means the transport of food is multi-directional, unlike transport of water, which was unidirectional. After a point, what happens? They reach the storage organ. Let us assume this to be the sink. The sink can be root, which is present deep below the soil. These molecules of water enter into the sink, right, which is the storage organ. As soon as it reaches the sink, sucrose gets converted into starch because starch is the storage form of sugar in plants, right? As soon as it reaches the sink, the food which was sucrose gets converted into starch, which is the storage form, and for this process it also requires energy in the form of ATP. So again, it is a active process. Did you understand this, students? Very simple. Food from the leaf which is produced as glucose enters into the companion cells. It is an active process, goes into the sieve tube. Concentration of sugar molecules become high, so xylem gives water. end osmosis, and from one cell it is distributed to all the cells, adjacent cells, in a multidirectional manner because of the concept of diffusion. Molecules move from higher concentration to lower concentration. Simultaneously, end osmosis is also happening because water from the xylem is also entering into the plant, right? And when it reaches the sink or the storage organ, the sugar molecules are converted into starch because that's a storage form of sugar in plants, and for this also they require energy, which is a active process. So what is the most important point you have to remember when it comes to transport of food? The first, transport of food is multi-directional. In all directions molecules move. The second, food is synthesized as glucose, transported as sucrose, stored as starch. Very important for your needs, students. Remember the three forms of sugar: synthesized as glucose, transported as sucrose, and stored as starch. Right? With this, we come to the end of this chapter, students. We have been talking about the means of transport, short distance transport, long distance transport. What all did we speak of? We spoke of diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis, imbibition, translocation, which is long distance transport. We spoke about transport of food, transport of water, transport of minerals as well, right? I hope you have understood all the concepts of this particular chapter, and I hope it is going to help you for your preparation, right? Until I see you in my next video, keep smiling and be happy, students.